In this video, we are going to introduce the concept of amniotes, and then amniotes include a couple of different types of animals. It includes reptiles, birds, and mammals. So in this video, we're going to focus on what the characteristics of amniotes are, and then in other videos, we are going to focus in more on these different types of amniotes. So the amniotes, we're looking at this area right here. And as I mentioned, it does include reptiles. It also includes birds, which are technically classified as reptiles. And it includes mammals. And so we're going to focus on just the characteristics of organisms that are in this kind of amniotic group. And then we'll cover reptiles, birds, and mammals in their own videos. So an amniote is just an organism that lays eggs that are adapted to a terrestrial environment. So amphibians are not amniotes because their eggs have to be laid in water. But reptiles, birds, and mammals all have eggs that are laid on land. And this is true of all birds, all reptiles, but only a few mammals. And we'll talk about the exceptions there. But mammals are still classified as amniotes because they have some similar structures that are found in the egg, but instead they become a placenta. So the shell that surrounds these eggs helps with protection. So it protects the developing embryo inside the egg. The shell is also semi-permeable, so gases can actually move across the eggshell. And this is needed because cellular respiration is happening in that developing embryo. And so oxygen needs to go into the shell, and carbon dioxide needs to be able to be removed from the egg. So these amniotic eggs have 4 extra embryonic membranes. And extra means that it is a membrane that is not actually part of the embryo. So the embryo is the developing animal, and the extra embryonic membranes are surrounding the embryo. So not part of the embryo, instead it is surrounding the embryo. And these 4 membranes include a yolk sac, the amnion, the chorion, and the allantois. So first, taking a look at the yolk sac. The yolk sac is the membrane that contains the yolk. So the yolk is the material inside the yolk sac. And if you've ever eaten a chicken egg before, you know that the yolk is that yellowy part of the egg. And there are fats, lipids, inside the yolk that help to provide nutrients to the developing embryo. So this is essentially nutrients and energy. The amnion forms a fluid-filled cavity that helps to protect the embryo and provide hydration. And you can see here that the amnion produces this amniotic cavity, which is filled with amniotic fluid. The chorion is a membrane or a layer, you can see the edge of it here, that helps to facilitate gas exchange between the embryo and the environment. And once again, the main gases that we're focusing on are going to be oxygen and carbon dioxide. Outside of the chorion, but within the eggshell, you have the white part of the egg, and this is made up of a protein called albumin. And you can see that here, this is the albumin, and so this would be the egg white. And it provides the developing embryo with protein and water, and that protein, once again, can be used to make energy so that the embryo can develop. And the allantois is a structure that stores metabolic waste products. And so these are waste products that typically occur from breaking down other molecules such as nucleic acids and proteins. So it kind of acts almost like a urinary system or an excretory system. It also helps to facilitate respiration. So you can see that it is kind of up against the chorion here, and the chorion is involved in facilitating respiration. So those two layers kind of work together to help move oxygen and carbon dioxide in and out of the egg. Most mammals do not lay eggs, but the one exception to this are a group of animals known as monotremes. And the one that you're probably most familiar with is the platypus. There's also another kind of monotreme called an echidna. And these are ones that actually lay eggs on land. And we'll talk about them more when we talk about the different types of mammals. All other mammals are still considered amniotes because they have those same extra embryonic membranes. They just don't have a shell that surrounds them. Instead, the developing fetus stays in, well, embryo and fetus stays inside the mother, and the mother basically acts as the shell. So in other mammals, there is a reduced yolk sac, but there is a little bit of a yolk sac there. And then the placenta is actually made up from two of the amniotic layers. So the allantois and the chorion come together in order to form the structure known as a placenta. You can also see this picture here with the placenta. And then this is what a placenta looks like after it has been delivered. So after the baby has been born, the placenta also comes out, and this is what it looks like. The placenta acts as a kind of intermediary between the mother and the developing fetus. So it's involved in transporting nutrients from the mom to the fetus. It's involved in gas exchange. So once again, carbon dioxide and oxygen are the two main ones that we focus on. And also waste removal. So that would be something like a urinary or excretory system. Some additional characteristics associated with amniotes, they do have waterproof skin, and this is usually due to either oils or waxes that are produced that help to coat the skin. If you think about human skin, we have sebum, and sebum is this kind of oily, fatty substance that forms the oil that covers our skin. Amniotes also have keratinized accessory structures. And so keratinides means that it has this protein called keratin. And this is kind of a tough, waterproof protein. And when we say accessory structures, so this is actually found in the skin. It's also found in nails or claws. It's found in hair and fur. And it's found in the scales of reptiles. Oh, also feathers in birds. Amniotes also have costal, and costal is a word that just refers to ribs, ventilation of the lungs. And what this means is that the lungs are actually attached to the inside of the rib cage, and then muscles move the rib cage kind of out and in. And as the muscles are moving the rib cage, it is causing air to flow into the lungs or be pushed out of the lungs. And we'll talk about that more when we get to the respiratory system. Amniotes likely evolved from amphibians about 340 million years ago. There are two main evolutionary lines or like branches on that phylogenetic tree. There are synapsids, which include therapsids, which evolved into our modern day mammals. There are also sauropsids, which includes diapsids, which evolved into reptiles and birds. And the main difference between these synapsids and diapsids has to do with the presence and number of fenestrae. And fenestrae just refers to basically these holes in the skull. So di means two. So diapsids have two of these holes in their skull. And this includes birds and reptiles except for turtles. Turtles are actually classified as anapsid, and A means without. Because you notice they are missing that fenestra. It's believed, however, that the fenestrae actually de-evolved, meaning that their ancestors probably had a fenestra, but the turtles eventually lost that hole in their skull. And then mammals have one hole, and you can see this is a human skull down here. And we have this kind of opening between our cheekbone and the temporal and parietal lobes of our skull. So we have this kind of pocket or opening as well.